Welcome to the Handed Down Kitchen, where we bring antique recipes out of the past and back into the kitchen. Today's recipe has to be one of our favourites so far. It's a 1940s recipe called Fish Envelope, a pasty filled with a tasty mixture of curried fish, rice and tomatoes. We also made the pastry using a recipe from the same cookbook, which we feel was definitely worth it. We found this recipe in our copy of the Manual of Modern Cookery, which was published in 1943 and doubled the amounts to make two, although one is enough to serve two people. And to make them, you'll need the following ingredients. To make a rough puff pastry, you'll need 5 ounces, that's 142 grams of margarine, the same weight of lard, 1 pound, that's 453 grams of plain flour, some cold water, a lemon, and if you'd like to add an egg wash, you'll also want 1 egg. And for the filling, you'll need 2 large or 6 small sliced tomatoes, 1 ounce, that's 28 grams of rice, we're using long grain, 1 teaspoonful of curry powder or paste, we're using Madras, 1 ounce or 28 grams of margarine, 8 ounces or 227 grams of fish, we're using salmon, and some salt and pepper to season with. First of all, cook your fillet of fish. We're going to bake this salmon fillet for about 20 minutes, and while that's in the oven, we're going to get on with making the pastry. This recipe gives us a choice. We can either make flaky pastry or rough puff, and to save some time, we're making rough puff. Pour your flour, some salt and the fats, the lard and margarine, into a large basin and rub them in until they come together like breadcrumbs. On the day we made this recipe, we hardly had any lard left, not half of what was needed, but luckily we had lots of beef dripping in the fridge, so we made up the rest with that. Squeeze half a lemon into the cold water. And mix it into the pastry a bit at a time until it starts coming together. We needed about 200 millilitres of water overall. When it's all well combined, knead the pastry until it becomes elastic. It's worth mentioning here that we made double the amount of pastry suggested by the recipe itself, 1 pound rather than half a pound, but we're glad we did. If not, we really would have had to stretch the pastry, which would have been fiddly and made a less solid envelope. At the end, we had about a quarter of the pastry left over, which we kept in the fridge to use for something else. Flour the surface that you'll be rolling out onto, and turn your pastry out onto it. Give the top a good dusting of flour, and roll it out. Making this sort of pastry always involves repetition. We're going to repeat the next steps 4 times. Roll your pastry out into a long strip, fold it in 3, flip it over so that the edges face downwards, dust with more flour, and roll it all out again. You repeat these steps 3 more times before rolling out a final 4th time. The recipe we're using doesn't tell you how thick to roll it out for the fish envelopes. We made ours quite thick, about 8 millimeters or 1/3 of an inch, and we're going to set it aside as we get on with making the filling. First, cook the rice in boiling water as you usually would. You only need a tiny bit of rice for this, and we're using long grain. It's just what we had around. By now, our fish has cooked through and has been kept hot in the oven, and we're going to flake it. The recipe doesn't say what sort of fish to use, and I'm sure any firm fish would be good. We felt like a bit of salmon, which we feel worked very well with the curry paste we used and the other flavours. Put your flaked fish into a bowl. And now that our rice has cooked through, we're going to drain it and add it to the fish. Then while they're still hot, add in the margarine. Mix this all together until the margarine melts in. Next, add in the curry powder or paste, we're using Madras, the sliced tomatoes, and season with some salt and pepper. Mix this all together well. Now our pastry and our filling is ready, all we need to do is assemble our envelopes. So bring back the pastry rolled into an oblong. You can see some lovely chunky bits of lardon dripping in there. And if you're making two like us, cut it in half lengthways. We'll make one now and the next later. Put half of your fish mixture in the middle, shaping it into a neat square or rectangle. This one is going to be a rectangle. And brush the sides with a little water. Then fold the other half of the pastry over the filling to cover it. Press down the edges so that they stick. And cut a nice straight line along them to seal them further and make it even. We've trimmed off some of the excess pastry from the other end, and now we're cutting off the corners to make the flap of the envelope. You can even use the scraps to make a stamp to decorate with if you like, although it would be stuck on the wrong side of the envelope, so it might not reach its destination. Brush with a little more water. Fold the flap over and stick it down. And there's your fish envelope. Put this onto a well-buttered baking tray and, if you like, brush with egg as we're doing. We'll bake them in a hot oven for 30 minutes, oven set at 200 degrees Celsius. These are best eaten hot, so don't waste any time. The recipe says to serve it with a hot sauce, but it doesn't say what sort, and as we weren't feeling particularly saucy, we left it. They smelled and tasted gorgeous. The fish, curry, rice and tomatoes are so well balanced. And the great thing about these is how portable they are. Wrap an envelope up in foil and take it to a picnic with you, or put half of one in your lunch bag for work. They're mouth-watering and will definitely keep you full. So there you are, 1943 fish envelopes, one of our favourite recipes yet. We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please leave us a like, and if you'd like to see us recreate more antique recipes, be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also find full instructions for this recipe and many more on our website linked in the description box below.